So when I was a young fella in Hamilton, the Springbok tour in 1981, and saw that, and that was my catalyst to join the police. I thought, man, we were at the game at Hamilton where the game was called off, where the protesters stormed the park, and I thought, this is a bit of me, and I applied for the police then. So in 1983, when I finished police college, I was sent to Whangarei, and I'd never been north of Auckland. I was 20 years old and was sent up here, and I've been here ever since for 40 years. So I spent 30 years in the police. I spent 8 years on the streets of Whangarei, and for 22 years I was the sole charge constable at Whangarei, a little station just north of Whangarei. We really are a hidden gem up here. We've got so much going for us. We're isolated, which is great, but with that isolation comes the downside of it as well. Financially and economically, we are isolated by the government. But the north is such a beautiful place. Me and my mates, we play a lot of golf, we fish, we dive, and that's the lifestyle that I love up here. I never thought I'd be here as long as I am, and I will never be leaving. This is my home. A couple of our adult children have moved to Perth, and they've taken 2 of our grandkids with them, which is just, and I fully support their decision. The decision was made purely on the increased opportunities in Australia, and also the fear of crime in Northland. They didn't want to bring their kids up here. That needs to change. We need to bring those kids back here. We want our grandkids back. I don't want my other grandkids leaving here because of the safety. But if they go, I'll have to support their decision. When I was asked to stand for New Zealand First, I immediately said no. I had no inclination, no aspirations to serve in central government. But we got talking about it, and the crime in particular up here is the thing that has got me interested in running for Parliament. I can't see any answers from the current government. The crime in Whangarei is just out of control, and in Northland out of control. 10 cars are stolen in Northland every day. That's every day. That's an unbelievable statistic. Violent crime is up over 50%. Our road toll is up over 80%. It's just these statistics, you can't make this stuff up. That's the reason I'm running. I really want to make a difference. There are answers, but they really are some hard decisions to make. We've got to address the drivers of crime. We've got to address the drivers of crime, which are education, poverty, housing, employment. Those are the things that the government won't address. Truancy. What I found in this year, I wrote a report for the government on youth crime as part of my role for local government. And I put a lot of time and effort into it. I've come up with some really high level answers to the youth crime issues. I gave that to our local MPs, both MPs. What have I heard? Nothing. The silence has been deafening. We've heard nothing from them at all. So that's why I'm running. I really think there are answers to make. There's some hard decisions that's going to get us to there, but we need to make them now. We need to stop the kids, the 5 and 6 year olds now coming up, aspiring to be gang members, aspiring for a life of benefit abuse, of crime. We need to, the future's in education and employment, and we need to make sure of that. You know, I was in town a couple of weeks ago. A guy who had a full face moco and a mohawk and was wearing a gang patches. We were having a quiet drink in the pub, and he comes over, and I thought, uh-oh, here we go. And he comes up and he gives me a hongi, and he says to me, I want to thank you for all of what you did for me when I was a young fella growing up. And I talked to him about his kids, and I said, how are your kids going? And both his kids were inside for murder. And he said to me, I didn't know how to keep them out of the system. I didn't know. I wanted to become a parent, and I didn't know how to. And that's the drivers of crime that we need to address. That was the real shame. And we had a little hug, and it was great. And this is guys that I've previously arrested. And I quite often get people phoning me up, young fellas who I had a bit to do with it, and they thank me for my hard but fair policing in the day. So it's a really rewarding. I loved every minute of my time in the police, and I got a lot of satisfaction and a lot of reward out of that. When I looked at New Zealand First policies, they're simple, common sense policies that answer these problems. The other parties come up with all these way out schemes. The boot camps work for 5 minutes. They're a part of it. They've been touted as a solution to it. New Zealand First, looking at the policies, they are the only party that I can see that really address those drivers of crime, the causes of crime, and that's where we need to start. We need to be the ambulance at the top of the cliff, not the ambulance at the bottom. So there's things like changing the road signs to bilingual, And I'm happy to have that debate, but I think we have that debate once our roads are fixed. We're spending millions on that sort of policy while our roads are a mess and our people are being killed on the roads. So that's where the money needs to go. We can have that debate when everything is perfect, when our health system's perfect, when our roads are good, when our crime is reduced. But now's not the time. We need to focus on those issues, not be sidetracked by these other issues. After 30 years in the police, so I went from a cop when I first joined the police that loved to lock people up. But when I got a bit older and a bit more experienced, I looked at what could I do to make a difference, and I think I changed as a cop, and I'm a different sort of politician in local government, and I think I'll be a different sort of politician in central government if I'm lucky enough to be elected. So I really care about the future of Northland. I really care about our people. I care when I see the almost daily occurrences of violence that are occurring in our streets, and I want to make a difference. It's been my life. And I can either, as I said earlier, I can either retire gracefully or I can get out and have a little crack at trying to make a difference, and I want to make a difference. Going to Wellington every week is probably the bit that I'm not going to enjoy, but that comes with the territory, and I thought long and hard about it. It's a huge commitment. It's a huge commitment for my partner, for my family, and but it's a commitment that I'm prepared to make. I'm at a stage of my life where I either wind down and retire, or I pick things up and have a real crack to make a difference. And I've got this one shot at it, and I'm going to make the most of it. So moving the ports of Auckland will be a real transformational issue for Northland. We need the employment. Auckland wants that area back to reclaim for housing and other development. We want them up here. It will really transform. The dry dock will be a huge asset for us. We have the facilities up here already. Northport are a very slick organisation who are ready to go. All we need is the infrastructure, the roading, to enable us that when the freight comes in here, we can ship it all over the country. And Northport are ready to do that. Northland is ready for it. Northland needs the jobs, the economy needs it, and it will be a real positive for the region. The close down of Marsden Point was a real blow for the Northland economy, not only for the economy, but for our residents who have left and gone. A young fella I know, a mate of my boys, he's moved to Invercargill in search of jobs. We need those kids back here. We need the employment back here. Over 350 jobs lost. But the worst part of it is Marsden Point was a great facility. It produced quality bitumen, it produced quality fuel, and we're now importing those products. And our roads are degrading because of that. And the fuel that is now being pumped, there's a story that the fuel that's piped to Auckland every 18 months, they had to replace the filter on it. Because the fuel is such inferior quality, they have to replace the filter every 3 months, which is just wrong. We were setting ourselves up to be self-sufficient. We are now reliant on importing from other countries. If that supply chain stops, we will be buggered. So New Zealand First, the policy is that we are one people, and that there should not be separate education, separate health systems for any race. And those are the policies that they believe in, and they are the policies that I believe in. So we all know the cost of living has got too high in this country. The reasons for that are wide and varied, but New Zealand First will address the reasons for that. The petrol, you go to the supermarket and you find what a block of cheese is worth now, and it's cheaper to buy a leg of lamb in England, a leg of New Zealand lamb, than it is in New Zealand. And those are things that we need to change. We need to, New Zealand First removing GST on the basic foods like meat and fish and dairy is a start, but we need to really look at what are the pushing these costs of living and deal with those. Creating opportunities for all is a New Zealand First policy that I'm right behind. Especially in Northland, we have groups of people who have no aspirations at all, who never want to work, who will never work. So we need to get that, we need to change the mindset, we need to get everybody out there working. We've got the jobs for them. We do not need to bring in 100,000 immigrants to take the jobs that are available now that could be filled by our own people. We need to get them to aspire to education and employment. Crime is the scourge of our society at this present point in time. We need to address it, we need strong leadership, and we need to change it. Improving the lives of seniors. So the people that have worked all their lives, that have paid taxes all their lives, They're not getting the respect they deserve, and they need respect. Crime and cost of living for them is a huge factor. New Zealand First has always been a proud supporter of our senior population and will continue to do so. They introduced the Gold Card and other benefits, and they will still be a focus for New Zealand First. My name is Gavin Benney. I'm running to be your New Zealand First candidate for Whangarei.